What's up, everyone? Welcome back to another review. This time we're taking a look at William Shakespeare's Romeo and Juliet, directed by Baz Luhrmann, starring Leonardo DiCaprio. Okay, I'm going to try and make this review as short and sweet as I possibly can. Now, I do not like Moulin Rouge. So with that, you would think that I wouldn't like this movie, but to the contrary, I actually do kind of like Romeo and Juliet by Baz Luhrmann. I consider this movie to be a guilty pleasure. Now, do I think this is a fantastic adaptation of the Romeo and Juliet story that's going to stand the test of time? No. Honestly, truthfully, I think this movie is completely silly. The whole idea of having the Shakespeare play take place in modern day city of 1996. Listen, if you're doing a modern day adaptation, it could work. I think what really makes this movie to me feel silly is the fact that you're using the old English, and it's set in a modern setting, the '96 setting, and Baz Luhrmann is using the old Shakespeare language in that setting, and to me, it just feels and sounds silly. Not to mention, the wardrobe in this movie, everyone is dressed like they're from 1996. We're 1996 wear. No, the Montagues are wearing like these Hawaiian shirts. The Capulets are wearing steel tipped boots, have tattoos, and dressing looking like gangsters. And they're spouting out this old Shakespeare language, and to me it's so jarringly silly that I can't help but marvel at it. And I will say this: the cast of this movie, they make it work. If this movie did not have the cast that it would have had, then this movie would be getting some harsh hatred from me. But this movie has a really stellar cast, and to me, some of the cast members they actually spew out the Shakespeare dialogue very, very naturally. Some of them do. Uh, Leonardo DiCaprio, who plays Romeo, I don't think he does a good job at delivering the lines, but from a performance standpoint, Leo was trying, and he's trying to be as natural as possible. Though I think there are some moments where he could be a little stilted saying the old English lines. Same with Claire Danes. I think Claire Danes and Romeo. I think Claire Danes and Romeo. I think Claire Danes and DiCaprio they do have really good on-screen chemistry with one another, but them spewing out the Shakespeare dialect to me, they just don't sound comfortable spewing out that dialect. Especially Claire Danes when she has to do like these monologues. And I don't know, to me, it sounds like she's trying way too hard, and it never comes across as natural. Though on the same side, even though I think Leo, he stumbles here and there, I think Leo has a better grasp on the old Shakespeare language because there are scenes where it's coming out of him naturally, as opposed to the scenes where I feel that it's not coming out of him naturally. So their performances to me are very mixed in terms of at delivering the language, though. But you can tell that they're trying, and they are giving decent performances, and the relationship between them works because we're supposed to like the characters of Romeo and Juliet, since it's a tragedy and they come from feuding families. It works for me. Speaking of which, the feuding families, I like the idea of making these families feel like they're pretty much mafia rivals. It works when you're updating it to a more modern aesthetic. And I think the veteran actors like Brian Dennehy, Paul Savino, Pete Postlewaite, and Bondi Curtis Hall, I think they have a better grasp on the Shakespeare language. And to me, it just sounds more natural when it comes out of them, particularly that of Pete Postlewaite, who plays Father Lawrence. Postlewaite feels like he's a Shakespearean actor, and he delivers the lines to me flawlessly. Paul Savino, same thing. Though I think for me, I found myself laughing at Paul Savino's performance, mainly because when he gets angry at Juliet, and just in general, the man's hamming it up. To me, it feels like he's hamming it up, and I know it's supposed to be serious, but I unintentionally just start laughing at it. Not saying Paul Savino's putting on a bad performance because he's not. Like to me, Savino and Postlewaite, they're like my favorite guy. They're like my favorite actors in this movie. I think Brian Dennehy is a little underutilized, and I also think Bondi Curtis Hall is a little underutilized. Since in the original play, the Captain Prince is actually related to Mercutio. Mercutio in this movie, played by Harold. I can't Panteroni. I can't remember what his name. He was in Oz. The guy in the wheelchair from Oz. He played Mercutio, who was Romeo's best friend. In the original play, the prince of the captain of Verona and Mercutio, they're like blood relatives, and that never is really said to us on screen, which I don't know why, since it's because of that is the reason why the Captain Prince banishes Romeo, along with the side of killing Talbot, who was played by John Leguizamo, by the way, and I think John Leguizamo was fine in this movie. But yeah, those events are what led to Romeo's banishment, and but Mercutio and the prince and the captain's heritage, they're never really brought in. I don't know why Baz decided to drop that plot point. The same with the character of Dave Paris, who's played by Paul Rudd in this movie. Dave Paris, who is Juliet's suitor, he is completely underutilized in this movie. In the original play, he has a lot more to do. In this movie, he comes across as just a cameo, and I think Paul Rudd is greatly underutilized. In the handful of scenes that he's in, I thought Paul Rudd was fine, and I actually thought they were going to do something with that, like have a triangle affair between Paris and Romeo, like it was in the original play. But Paris comes across as just a plot device to get Juliet to Romeo, and he's just left out in the cold with no resolution at all. The last time we see Dave Paris as a character, he's like, "I will wed you next Thursday, Juliet," and you don't see him again. Completely underutilized. Don't know why. I don't know why. Benvolio, played by Dash Mayhawk, he's in this movie. I like Dash Mayhawk as an actor. I like him in this movie, and I actually like the scenes with him and DiCaprio. I thought they had a pretty decent on-screen chemistry with one another, and I buy them as being very close cousins, which is what they're portraying in this movie. So I'm fine with that. From a production standpoint, this is a beautiful looking movie. Just in general, it's well shot, well directed, really good cinematography. The very few action sequences that are in this movie, to me, they're kind of intense. I thought they were well directed. They're very intense. They have that MTV music video type of feel. Since this movie does take place in 1996, MTV was very, very popular during that time. So this movie does have like an MTV feel in a lot of areas. I mean, it's also very jarring that it's pretty much this movie is pretty much William Shakespeare meets MTV, and you would never think that a combination like that would work. And with this movie, to Baz's credit, in certain areas he made it work, and in other areas it just feels completely out of place. But again, that does not mean that this is a bad movie whatsoever. It's not a bad movie. This movie is a guilty pleasure. I find it to be extraordinarily silly, but the actors are trying. And the story itself of Romeo and Juliet is a good tragedy. It's a good tragic story. It's very popular. It's probably one of Shakespeare's most popular plays in general. So using that in this context, it's fine. Though I think if you would have just spruced up the dialogue to sound more modern, I think it would have been much better if certain characters that were in the play weren't so downplayed or underutilized in this movie. And if they're just kept with their original roles, I think this movie would have been a little bit more had a much more weight to it. The action sequences, like I said, that are in it, they're all fine. I like them, especially the whole segment where Mercutio has his death, which I think is a fantastic scene, and that's actually where I think DiCaprio really sells his acting, and that's where he's really really good. And that entire segment where Mercutio dies, and then it segues to him killing Talbot and the other Capulets. That to me is where DiCaprio really, really shines in this movie, and that's where he really has a grasp on the character of Romeo. So yeah, Leo does have flashes of goodness in this movie, but he also has flashes of he's good, but he can be a little stilted in some areas, and he's trying maybe a little too hard. It's not so, and he doesn't sound so natural. So yeah, like Romeo and Juliet to me is a mixed bag of a movie. Parts of it I like, parts of it I don't care for, but don't hate it. And overall, I think it's okay. I mean, I'll say this. The whole concept of Romeo and Juliet is silly because these people meet and marry after a day of knowing each other. I mean, if you're going to modernize the Romeo and Juliet story, at least let the relationship build out more. I mean, you're doing a modern retelling. Make it your own and have the relationship develop over the course of a couple of weeks or maybe a month or two instead of the whole one day thing, which I find silly when I first read the play. And I still find it silly in the adaptation in this movie. But anyway, with all that being said, I'm going to give Romeo and Juliet a 6.5 out of 10. It's a guilty pleasure. I like it. I think it's a better movie than Moulin Rouge, to be honest with you. So yeah, those are my thoughts on Romeo and Juliet by Baz Luhrmann. Let me know your thoughts in the comment sections down below. Like the video and subscribe. and I will check you back next time for more.